on a descent down into Livigno. Let's join the action again.
Well, early on, not a surprise, Damiano Cunego going in a move here, but I think what's more important, the little rider from Venezuela in the green jersey is looking for maximum points once again.
Yes, and he's been getting them too, because on the Fascinetto at 39 kilometres, Rujano was on his own. He's now back in the pack just a little bit. He looks as though he's under pressure now, but he's got to get tired soon, surely.
There you get a chance to see the Maglia Rossa, the new Maglia Rossa, Paolo Savoldelli, shadowed there by, you could just spot Iván Basso. This is Vladimir Belli wearing number 82, a man once disqualified from the Giro d'Italia for punching somebody in the nose, and that wasn't bad because he was going uphill at the time and he was put under pressure by the Simoni hooligans. Fortunately, that seems to have disappeared.
9 riders shaping the race early on today. Just looking back here as they're trying to split this up now. Rujano is a man on fire. Hey, this is Iván Parra again. Well, I don't know where he found the legs from, but this is Parra on the move again. He was in the first 9 riders to escape, and della Italia, the pair of them now having a great time, throwing this jersey around.
Well, these riders don't care at all about the overall classification. Just looking a little further up the road, though, we can see getting himself maximum points very early on. This man, who comes from Venezuela, is turning out to have no fear at all of the long distances. He's trying to get himself, again, maximum points at the top of this climb. Got the Maglia Verde on his shoulders, the green jersey, as leader of the King of the Mountains classification, and that's a lot more points in the bag.
I'll tell you what, this team has grown with stature and confidence. Look at that, happy, yes indeed. Keep on picking up the points, and this jersey will be all yours before we get to the rest day. He's not even going to push home the attack. Well, it's still a long way to go. He's going to wait for the others to do their share of sprinting and then rejoin here. This is the De Luca group. The pink jersey now on the shoulders of Team Discovery's Paolo Savoldelli. They are saying, by the way, that Iván Basso was not feeling at all well yesterday. Well, we'll wait and see. Iliano was the rider in second place, and Cunego here getting 10, 6 and 4. So we're heading now towards the big mountain of the day, the Stelvio Pass.
Well, the Stelvio Pass going to go up very, very high indeed. Filippo Pozzato there, and this is rather a surprise because in the early few kilometres of the Stelvio Pass, the first man to get dropped there was Iván Basso. And look at the time difference, 18 minutes to Iván Basso. I think today he has disappeared away from the top end of the overall standings in the Giro d'Italia, and he's just going to have to wonder whether or not, Phil, he's going to stay in the race.
Well, I think you could say that. We've switched straight to that group here on the way up here. Now Iván Basso, as we get up to the snow line, losing some 18 minutes. And there he is, he stopped in fact. Now, is this the moment of truth where he climbs off? Because they said he's got some sort of stomach problem. Bjarne Riis is getting out the car, and in fact he's not packing in, is he? Because they're putting plastic on for the descent down.
It's Andrea Perron with him. I don't think, you know what, this man is not going to walk away from the Giro d'Italia. He's more than 20 minutes behind the leading group of riders. Iván Basso there in the middle, getting the black raincoat on to keep himself warm on the descent. He has been suffering from some strange intestinal problem, but he will not abandon the race. And the teammates, they're all alongside him.
Blauten is off to our right, the champion of Denmark. He's also waiting, you can't see him. Boy, are they wrapping him up. He must have some sort of cold or bronchitis or something, but he's not going to give up, and I think that's a sign of a great rider.
Well, this is a rather brave move by the man there. You can see he's got his black jersey on to keep himself warm against the elements, and just look at how cold it was up there. Iván Parra, though, well, he's not too worried about the cold, is he? Because he's got himself a lead at the front of the race once again.
So dropped on the Stelvio, way behind on the Bormio, and Basso is now out of the race as far as the overall goes, but with a great show of determination, he's not going to pack in and leave by what they say, the little door. So hats off there to Iván Basso, because it takes a lot of courage to go on when you've been leading the Giro d'Italia. Meanwhile, up front, Iván Parra is having a great day out yet again. 2 days and a chance now of another stage win. Surely not.
Well, that's always very difficult to do when you come to the big mountain passes. We're looking back to see what the state of play is a little bit further behind him, and once again it's very similar to the state of play just 24 hours ago, because the man in the group defending the chances of his teammate is none other than Jose Rujano, although they've got different men with them this afternoon.
change of colours as they're now heading over towards the last climb of the day, which will be the Foscagno. They topped this at 195 kilometres, so there's still a little run to go, and Parra has made his move, leaving a leading group, exactly a carbon copy of yesterday. 22 seconds on the small group and 3 minutes on the next group, and that's a much bigger time gap.
It's a much bigger time gap, but I don't think, once again, the group of the Maglia Rosa are too worried about any of the riders present in that leading group of men who've got themselves an advantage through the mountains. I think the big story has to be the disappearance from the top 10 overall of Iván Basso, who's completely and utterly crumbled. And I'm actually wondering a little bit about the sense of Bjarne Riis keeping him in the event, because after all, this man has to get himself back up and recover to ride for the Tour de France in about 6 weeks' time.
Well, you know, in modern day cycling, Pantani was the last rider to win both the Tour of France and the Giro in the same year, 1998, but I think it's a big ask now. Here's the rider who's at least enjoying his mountaineering days. We've been up in the snow line over the Stelvio. We've seen Basso in big trouble there, and that gap is going to grow for sure, because he's obviously very, very weak at the moment. This has been a disaster this weekend for him. Looking here now as we move on to the final climb of the day, Foscagno. Massive height again, 2,300 metres. This is higher than the Col de Tourmalet in the Tour de France again, and an average of 11%. 20 kilometres to go, and he's just enjoying his day out.
Well, they're in a very good situation once again, as they were just 24 hours ago, Colombia D'Italia, because if this man messes up, well, then they've always got Jose Rugiano to take over behind. Damiano Cunego was on the attack early on. He was in the early move of the day. He got himself some King of the Mountains points. He's certainly not the leader anymore of the Team Lampre, but he's actually slipped back to the group now and being picked up by the group that contains the Maglia Rosa of Paolo Savoldelli. There's Gilberto Simoni just a little bit further back. Vladimir Belli, he was also on the attack early on today's stage, as they too now head up towards around about 20 kilometres to go. This is the chasing group of 4 riders, and there is Ricciardo just sitting on the back. And in fact, Parra's got himself a more sensible advantage than much better than he had yesterday at this stage of play. It's just inside of the 1 minute mark.
Well, these are the next 4 on the road, and well, Savoldelli is beginning to look only at a couple of riders now, and primarily just one rider. The whereabouts of Gilberto Simoni is his only challenger, and Simoni is just riding down the back here. Cunego now is the team helper rather than the team leader, last year's winner. No, that's not very complimentary, I don't think.
It says the doping of Savoldelli is polenta, which is rather a nice pasta made out of potatoes, and that's probably quite true, because you can eat very well when you come to ride the Giro d'Italia.
You can eat very well if you don't ride the Giro d'Italia in Italy, as far as I'm concerned. This is a wonderful country. It seems to have just about everything. If you like good food, good wine, great cycling. There's Simoni, still riding well. Cauchioli. This has been an interesting group, and Sergei Honshaw, amongst the people who've retired today we've heard of. Gone now, Aitor Gonzalez, after his moment of inspiration a few days ago. We haven't seen him since, and he's retired.
Well, Wim van Huffel is in that group, looking very comfortable, and the Belgians are starting to talk about him as the next new big stage race star for them, and he's going to see himself move probably into the top 15 at the end of today with a ride like this, accompanying all of the greats. Damiano Cunego this year in the Giro d'Italia, turning around and working for team leader Gilberto Simoni, who now must be wondering whether or not he can win this race, because in front of him the only man he really has to worry about is Paolo Savoldelli.
Honshaw, Cauchioli, Simoni, Zarate and De Luca. De Luca's having a great tour. We just don't see him as a major climber, yet he's hanging on in there and holding a very high place overall.
And not a bad ride by Charlie Waggalis either, to stay in contact with the riders on a stage like this. He'll be there to try and look after Danilo De Luca for as long as he can. Cunego, last year's winner of the Giro d'Italia, this year the Super Domestique for Gilberto Simoni. I don't think they're too worried about the presence of that leading group of riders, but Phil, if they keep letting Jose Rugiano get away on stages like this, Rugiano is going to see himself move up quite high in the overall classification, and he could end up being a threat.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's got nearly double the points of anybody else in the King of the Mountains now, so he's no need to worry too much about winning that competition. He's got to get to the finish, of course, but He's really built such a lead in his last 2 or 3 days in the mountains, and Iván Parra is his nearest challenger and he's his teammate. So they seem to have got that in the bag, which is extremely good for a wildcard team. They weren't sure they would get it, but dell Italia are part sponsors of the Giro d'Italia, so I would think that would help when it came to a little bit of wildcard selection. There he is, having his second great day in the Tour. We're high up again, as you can see, not too much grows up here, 2,000 metres. But Iván Parra is proving yet another enormously good climbing style here as he comes up.
Incredibly talented athlete. He's got 47 seconds over the group that he was with, containing his own teammate, and around about 3.5 minutes over the group containing the Maglia Rosa. I don't think there will be a chase in earnest to try and pull him back, because he's a long way down in the overall classification. He's just basically looking for individual glory on these mountain stages. He'll take a back seat over the next couple of days once we get onto the slightly flatter lands, but he'll try and do something special over the last few days once we get right up into the top western part of the country and we go towards the Alps.
Well, overall, he's just about behind overall what Basso is in real time right now, around about 20 minutes. So he's not going to climb too far up the overall classification, but he's certainly laying claim to a second successive stage win. And Basso, no further news, I'm afraid, but he's got to be approaching 30 minutes now.
It's a big loss for him this afternoon, and psychologically a bitter blow for him and the rest of the team, because he felt that he was the man who was going to win this. But that was certainly an indication yesterday when he lost over a minute on the mountaintop finish that there was something not quite right with Iván Basso, who just days before had looked like nobody was going to dislodge him from top spot.
Well, these are the 4 nearest to him. And Iván Parra, not going to help at all. Very happy with the situation. The team's making a few bob, I must say, because of their fine riding in this last 2 days. Just 4 of them coming away together.
Osa just sitting in the back there for Illes Baleares. These men shouldn't have to worry too much at all about the main field. They've got themselves... This group is still 3 minutes in front of the Maglia Rosa group, the Maglia Rosa group of Paolo Savoldelli. But I do wonder which riders from Team Discovery Channel are going to be up alongside Paolo Savoldelli to look after him. He's going to have to be very clever tactically whenever we go up into the big mountain passes. And look at that time gap there now. It's 1:13.
He's pulling away
to Sella and the rest of that group, and he's certainly extending his advantage.
He's just pulling away from them. They've all been out front for a long time, but this man just loves these mountains. I think of all the things that one would like to be at a top cyclist, mountain climbing must be the one discipline to feel good at, because they make it look so easy. Parra's had a magical period of a couple of days this year in the Giro. It won't help him get near the pink jersey. He lost far too much time in the time trials in the earlier days, but he's now just 24 hours away from the next rest day, and then the last very tough 5 days of this Giro when it resumes. But this has been a weekend to remember.
It certainly has been a weekend to remember for Colombia, but I tell you one thing about the Giro d'Italia is it's always a sting in the tail. It's always the last few days, and this race can always get turned upside down. Very often in the last 48 hours. This year we've got an individual time trial and then a very difficult mountain stage just the day before the end.
There's the tunnel way up the road there. Takes about 3 minutes to get there if the timekeepers are right with what they're telling us, as this is the group now, which is also making time on the climb. The snow here, not so much actually, because at this time of year I thought it might have been a bit heavier at 2,000 metres, but it seems to be part of the global warming, I guess. There's Paolo Savoldelli, will feel very happy with the situation right now. Basso is no longer a name to be carried on his handlebars. He can tick him off, because today he certainly has lost the Tour. For the leader, it's on the way down, heading towards the finish. These are the main chasers, led by Valjevic, Ujiano, Osa.
Well, it looked to me as if Dario Cioni was in a spot of bother there too, in the lime green jersey of Liquigas. He seemed to be unable to follow the pressure of that group, which was being certainly ripped apart by Damiano Cunego. Cunego must be thinking about whether or not they can dislodge Paolo Savoldelli, who doesn't have any teammates at all alongside him. Now this is the acceleration for the summit of the climb, and look at Riano all over the back wheel of Valjevic.
Well, he'll want to take him on in the sprint if he can. Just sneak a couple of more points at the top of the climb. Cunego showing for the first time, I think, the class that won him the race last year. Telling the motorbike to give him some more room. And in fact, Damiano Cunego is going to feel very happy about this, because he's the perfect teammate. In fact, there doesn't seem to be any animosity between Simoni and Cunego. I think it's the press try to develop something which frankly is not there.
I think last year Cunego was just too good for Gilberto Simoni. He couldn't do anything but just accelerate away from everybody else on the summits of these mountains, and that's what gave him the win in the Giro d'Italia. But this year he doesn't quite seem to be the same man, and I wonder if he's just trying to hold something back. Maybe they've changed his preparation to have him ready for the Tour de France, where they're saying he will participate.
Well, the Italians will cheer anybody who's in the lead. And this is a nice ride up to the summit now for the Colombian Iván Parra. More points. It'll consolidate his second place behind teammate Rujano in the King of the Mountains. Rujano is just too far ahead. Don't think can be caught all of the way now to Milan. Let's hope he gets there, of course.
That's the most important thing. I'm sure he will. He's riding very consistently. He's only 22 years of age, Jose Rujano, as we get up to the summit of this climb. And you can see he's not too far away from getting himself maximum points, and they'll be almost certain to put money on his teammate getting second place.
There's the green flag flying at the summit. We continue on the way.
On the descent now, Iván Parra. He's going to take a lot of risks if he can on the way down here, because the most important thing for him is to try and conserve as much of the 1 minute advantage he's got over the chasing group. As we get a look here,
watch this. They get a little bit excited, don't they?
Oh, they certainly do. They get a little bit too close sometimes. He's making his way up. Nobody would like to create an accident for a rider like this, but certainly the Tifosi, the cycling fans in Italy, get a little bit over exuberant sometimes, especially on the mountain stages.
This is Valjevec here. Surely Rujano will try to beat him to the line and snick the points. There's the clock counting since the leader Parra started his descent. There'll be no offering of assistance, that's for sure, because Valjevec can pack quite a good sprint if he gets down to the bottom, and he wouldn't want to hand the stage to him, although it'd be a great result for Phonak, I must say.
The gap is starting to extend. The last time we got an official gap, it was about 47 seconds, and I think next time we stop the clock, it's going to be a lot closer to 1.5 minutes. And Rujano there in second place, he's just going to sit back and just defend, because he's defending two things here. He's defending not only his lead in the King of the Mountains classification, but he's also defending the possibility of 2 wins in a row for his team, and of course for Iván Parra.
Yes, a terrifically good day out, to say the least. There's the top, 1:31 the gap. This is life on the chase group now, thank you. As we're looking now at Damiano Cunego here, setting a very fast tempo indeed, helping his teammate Simoni and running away from everybody else except Savoldelli.
This is not a very big group, and I tell you once again, the man impressing me in the Giro d'Italia is Danilo De Luca. He's had a very difficult couple of seasons, but this year he really does seem to have come right back to the top end of the sport, and De Luca is also very much present in this group. You can spot him every now and again. He's wearing the white jersey as leader of the Pro Tour classification, a new competition which has been brought in to bring together all of the one-day races, the shorter stage races, and of course, for the moment, the Grand Tours.
That was Osa fleetingly over the top from Euskaltel. Rujano just sitting off the back. He doesn't descend that well, actually, Jose Rujano. If he's got a fault, it's going down, certainly not going up. And the Phonak rider here, Tadej Valjevec, is probably a little bit better on the descent. But Parra shows no fears here, as he continues on his way down, waiting for the finish. We're heading down to Livigno now. We run off the mountains. It's not a mountain top finish, this one. 2,500. There's facing just about 1,000 kilometres left in this year's Giro d'Italia. Oh, this is Emanuel Sella.
Well, you can get a chance to see just how good this descent is. We're just cruising through the town of Trepale. This descent this afternoon is so straight that these riders are touching speeds approaching 60 miles an hour, while further down on the slopes, Cunego is doing a fantastic job there, just ahead of Huffel. Paolo Savoldelli, although he doesn't have any teammates present in this group, does look rather comfortable. He doesn't look like he's going to be put under pressure at all so far.
Cunego's done an awful long ride here on the front, and hats off to him for that. We're watching here the champion of Russia here as he continues on his way.
Kolobnov, he was in front of the group. He's being picked up.
Well, he was in the very early breakaway, but he's coming back like all of them now, Alexander Kolobnov.
It's rather a large group, but it contains all of the major favourites. The only man really losing out here this afternoon is Iván Basso, who is currently trailing at around about 25 minutes in arrears. And that is rather a surprise, I think, to everybody here at the Giro d'Italia, because that man was the #1 favourite before the start of this event.
This guy doesn't let his position relax at all. He just looks so good. He's a very small, compact rider. Continuing on his way now, being chased all of the time there by Osa, I think it is. These are long descents now. This is the way down off the mountains. Remember, we're coming off over 2,000 metres, 6,500 feet.
It's very barren up here. It's been whistling cold over the summits of these mountains, with the temperatures dropping to around about 12 degrees Celsius because of the chill factor. And when you go downhill off the top of these summits, it can be very difficult for the muscles by the time you get to the bottom. You can see yourself on these descents going downhill for around about 25 minutes, and that is certainly not all that good because the chill factor really does deaden the muscles. You heat up, the core body goes up to around about 25-30 degrees Celsius on the ascents, but once you start to go down, it really is rather chilly.
I'm just wondering if something like that has caused the problem with Iván Basso making the descents and catching perhaps a chill, and it's come out 2 days later after his great expedition, and he's had a terrible weekend. Out of the Tour as far as any chance of victory goes now, any chance of a top 30 position goes, I would think, but we'll see.
I think the big
he
decision,
hasn't given up, that's the big thing.
The big decision is whether they bring him out again to race tomorrow, and whether he can recover overnight. Maybe not quite so much physically, because when you're in good form you can recover physically as long as you've been looked after properly, but mentally, when you've come to the Giro d'Italia as a man expected to win, then all of a sudden you're way down in the doldrums in 25th or 30th place overall. It's hard to come out and fight again.
Well, I bet it's cold in these mountain villages through the winter here, but they're getting a nice bird's eye view now of the passage of the leader on the day of the Giro d'Italia for the second day in succession from an almost identical breakaway. He's ridden away, except he's left himself a little bit more of a buffer this time. Now they know what he's capable of, they can't catch him.
Well, they're going to remember the name of Iván Parra after this weekend, that's for certain. He's already got one stage victory under his belt, and I think here this afternoon he's taken a serious option on getting himself a second one in 2 days, and that really is a remarkable performance as we go into the big high mountains. Parra got himself maximum points there over the top of that climb, and he's still now thinking much more about trying to survive off the front end of the group and get himself another victory. And what a Giro d'Italia that would be, because if they were to win the King of the Mountains as well, I think they would have filled the contract for the team.
6 racing days left after this, apart from the rest day, which will come in 48 hours' time. And it looks to me as though Luciano has done enough to win the King of the Mountains, though we still have some rather rough mountains. We go into the Italian Alps. We finished at Sestriere, don't forget, before we race up to Milan. We've got the time trial to come as well, and we've got Limone Piemonte still ahead of us, so it's going to be a tough finish to this tour. At 10 kilometres to go, I don't think Iván Parra's worrying about the next day or the day after.
Well, he's banking everything on just taking individual stage victories. This team and these two riders have worked very well together over these big mountain stages. Riano has built himself an almost unbeatable lead in the King of the Mountains classification, and Parra at the front always knew that if he was to be brought back by a move, he always had his teammate to take up and launch a counter-attack. Riano just sitting there in second position, very happy just to let everybody else do all the pacemaking. He has got an ideal situation here. He's building himself up an advantage every day that we go into the big mountain passes. This is the summit of the climb, and it's just 10 kilometres to go, and he does, once he gets to the top of this false flat, have a fairly good chance to recuperate as we go over the summit and head downhill slightly.
Just sat at the back of the group here is Christian Moreni, road racing champion of Italy. As he continues on his way, it looks like Labato, I think it was.
That was Lobato, teammate of Juan Manuel Garate, who's ridden well over the last couple of days as well. These are the two men in second and third place in the overall classification. Valjavec in first place there for Phonak, and then Ruyano. Weighs in at 48 kilos. He's not very tall either, but I tell you what, when it goes to going uphill, he certainly is proving to be a major revelation, and I wouldn't be surprised, Phil, if one of the big top teams didn't snap him up for next season.
Well, I quite agree. I don't think Giro dItalia will want him to lose, though, because he's their star player in slightly smaller races around the world. And Parra is forcing his way in, although he's been around quite a long time. This is without doubt his finest weekend in any bike race anywhere in the world. Valjavec's down there doing a bit of pacemaking. He's a known quantity because he was 9th in the Giro last year. He's still a challenger, but a little bit off the pace this year. But as you can see, he's got good form. He's had an 18th overall in the Vuelta, the Tour of Spain. Doesn't win too many races, but he knows how to put things together in a long stage race. And he's doing good pacemaking there. He knows Ruyano isn't going to help him chase down his own teammate. So this man now has only got to complete the course and win the stage. Nobody's going to catch him.
It always amazes me when you see the style of the Colombian climbers out of the saddle, accelerating, punching, fighting with the bike all of the time. There you can see Paolo Savoldelli looking reasonably comfortable. As we go a little bit further forward, this is Lobato getting out of the saddle, trying to make it that little bit more difficult. They're trying to put time between themselves and everybody else in the group. Moreni seems to be having a little bit of difficulty at the back here, Italian national champion. While
I think Kolobnev just went as well.
Finally reached the summit there. Maximum points for this man. And I don't know if you saw the way he sat down onto his saddle there. I think he was saying to himself, I could do with a bit of a breather. And he will have for a few kilometres anyway.
Well, he's running down to the valley now. Livigno is right at the base of the mountains. And they're going the right way for an easy day. Down. Van Huffel here, who has had a brilliant race.
That's Simoni going on the right-hand side there.
Well, somebody better react, because Van Huffel has taken it up.
Pretty sure that was Gilberto Simoni. I just caught a glimpse of that dark jersey going off the front, and look at the crowd now. They're going ballistic. They want Gilberto to win. Van Huffel certainly is a major revelation for the Belgians. They'll be getting quite excited about the fact they've finally found themselves a new climber. Let's have a look back and see if Paolo Savoldelli's been able to respond to that as well.
Well, he certainly was slow to respond, if indeed. That's why Cunego's been doing all the pacemaking. They've been setting it up for Simoni to try and steal a few seconds away from Paolo Savoldelli. And this is his big movement just before the top, then a demon descent down to the valley below. Job done, but I don't know whether he can, and maybe he can here. That's De Luca coming across.
That's De Luca coming across, but the Maglia Rosa is not there. Paolo Savoldelli hasn't been able to respond. He put a big day in to get himself the Maglia Rosa, but now let's just have a look at this one more time. You see, all of a sudden there was a dark blue and pink flash down the right-hand side of the road, and this is the first man to respond there, Van Huffel. But Paolo Savoldelli, Phil, is not able to respond here, so maybe he's not quite as solid in the Maglia Rosa as we thought.
Well, he saw the move. He looked across at it, and he didn't show any lifting of the pace at all. He's stuck there with Markus Foten, who's riding very, very well for Gerolsteiner, the German cyclist. But this is interesting now, because if De Luca makes it, he's got to work with Gilberto Simoni and try and open the gap on Paolo Savoldelli. Bit of a jinx on the old pink jersey this year, isn't there? Because when you get it, you find you're under pressure in the extreme. There's De Luca now. He's up there.
Look at De Luca fighting. He's just going past Van Huffel, and where is Gilberto Simoni? Can't be too far off the front, but he's opened up the gap. He's launched an attack one more time. There is Gilberto Simoni. These are the attacks that he likes. He's a punchy bike rider. Looking a little bit further back, Calcioli is alongside Savoldelli, but Savoldelli must make sure that he has got enough energy left to pull himself back on the descent. Let's not forget his greatest asset, Phil, is going downhills fast.
We might need that asset right now, because Simoni is going clear here in the group and doing very, very well indeed, because he's got Garate with him now, so they've swapped with the places with Lobato. And Garate is living up to his pre-race reputation of a possible podium finish. He's a bit of work to do for that, but he's going to be up amongst the leaders here. He can hang on.
Well, he looks comfortable. He's joined the man who has been so aggressive over the last few seasons at the Giro d'Italia, Gilberto Simoni. And this is why Damiano Cunego was doing so much work in the early part of this stage, trying to set something up Though I tell you what, Danilo De Luca is riding the Giro d'Italia of his career because he's leaping across the gap there. He wants to make contact with Gilberto Simoni before they get to the summit of this climb so that he's comfortable on the descent down towards the finish.
Well, the amazing thing is that De Luca's held the lead in this race. He's won stages. Now, if he can make a top 6 finish, he will be the next leader in the Ciclamino points jersey. So that's his next objective right now. It's open for grabs as well, of course.
There he is. He's right onto the wheel of Gilberto Simoni. He's having an unbelievable ride here. And if the two of them work together, they could change the look of the overall classification once again here this afternoon. Paolo Salvadelli is in difficulty. Nobody to help him at all. He has to set the pace-making on his own, but he's in that little tunnel of noise now. He's not too far away from the summit of the climb.
There is the summit now. Look, he's gritting his teeth here. He knows where his strengths lie. He knows he can descend. We've said it before, though, Simoni is an extremely good rider at going downhill. But this is going to have to be an extreme descent now from Paolo Salvadelli. He's got the time, and he could get back, but it's going to have to be a great chase.
Going to have to be a brilliant chase. I don't think any of that will change the look of the individual stage because Iván Parra is still holding on to a very big advantage. 23 seconds the difference between Gilberto Simoni and Paolo Salvadelli.
23 seconds downhill. He's not far off 3/4 of a kilometre, you know, at these speeds.
But he should be able to pull it back because, after all, Salvadelli is the better descender of all of them. Although, as you said, Phil, on occasions, when it goes downhill, Gilberto Simoni's not bad himself.
And we're getting demonstration now. Still 8 kilometres, 5 miles to the finish. As we watch, Simoni knows he's got his chance now. He's got to push it home here. Damiano Cunego was the man that set it up for him with some tremendous pace raking up that climb. And Simoni made his attack just before the summit. Here's the chase behind. Cauchioli is going with him.
Well, he's going to use all of his skills now right into the left-hand side as he sees the way the corner is starting to open up. He moves nicely across to the right-hand side of the road, cutting all of the apexes. That is absolute poetry in motion. There's a group in front of him, but that is not the group, I don't think, of Gilberto Simoni. That's a group caught halfway across. Simoni is around the corner still.
Yeah, the Garati's not there, the bright yellow jersey, so it can't be the Simoni group, but whoever they are, he's bringing those back for sure. Meanwhile, the man we must not forget, concluding 2 great days in the Giro d'Italia, and this will certainly be now his second stage win for Iván Parra. He's off the main sector of the climb. There in the distance is the town of Livigno, and that is where his journey will end today with another victory on a stage. A call of help here for Cauchioli to come and give him a hand out.
Cauchioli comes straight up there, not scared of doing a little bit of work. All these riders actually have their own agenda. They all want to keep themselves in the top 10 in the overall classification. Iván Parra now comes at 3 kilometres to go, and at these speeds it shouldn't really take him very much more than 3 minutes, but these guys are still a little bit further down the road. They're just about to catch the group in front, but I'm quite surprised to see that Paolo Salvadelli hasn't closed down that 23 seconds all that fast.
Apparently not. Was not seeing where on earth. Here he is now, and that is Garate hanging onto his tail. De Luca will love this too. He also drives down the hill. 2 against the pink jersey of Il Falco, and they're going to make the most of this because it looks the way this race is going that these riders aren't far apart in ability this year, and these seconds are going to be invaluable.
Well, I tell you what, this descent is actually not lending itself to Paolo Salvadelli. He prefers a descent to be that little bit more dangerous so he can pull back the time on the tricky technical corners, but these corners are sweeping corners, and all of these groups are going downhill at about the same pace, and that pace is very close to 100 kilometres an hour, and that's why we're not seeing Salvadelli really nail back these 3 men. The man he really wants to catch is the man who's in 3rd place there, Gilberto Simoni. This is a good corner for Salvadelli to pull back a bit of time. You've certainly got to take risks to get round that one.
This is a lovely descent, and in fact for the leader it's all over now. Just a gentle downhill into the plains of Livigno, and victory for Iván Parra. This is the chase now to open the gap, or rather close the gap to the pink jersey of Paolo Salvadelli. He hasn't lost it yet to Gilberto Simoni, but he's got it. That was the corner, and he's led round it.
Did you see how he went round that corner? No, hardly a touch of the brakes, hardly a loss of momentum at all. He will have probably pulled back 3 or 4 seconds just in that 30 or 40 metres around that corner.
Looks like the road's cracking up a bit down there. Winter is behind us, of course. We're heading up towards the summer. It's been a beautiful day. This man now is riding the long straight road to the line. Iván Parra, about to celebrate in as many days his second stage win in the Giro d'Italia. It's not going to help him too much overall. He'll still be round about 20 minutes behind when he gets there today. But that's not the nature of this man. He wants the stage win. Flick of the arm. Through comes Pietro Cacchioli. They're driving on. Last kilometre for Parra, and victory will be his.
Well, victory will be his, and he's not slowing down at all. He's keeping the pressure right until the final moment. It's a fast downhill finish towards the line. He is going to give Colombia dell'Italia the second victory in as many days, and that is really quite remarkable. You would always expect a different bunch of climbers to go forward and go out on the attack, but that's not knowing this team. Colombia dell'Italia, one of the smaller teams on the circuit, Phil, but one of the most aggressive.
Well, Carlos Castro won stage 14 in the year 2001. No Colombians won since, until yesterday, of course, and Parra's now made it a double. Massive crowd here. They will have seen his journey over the mountains on television. Now they can see the man. Now, he took a photograph out of his back pocket yesterday. I suspect it was family and kissed it. I wonder if he's got it with him today. Maybe he didn't think he could do it 2 days running. Terrific result. 2 wins in 2 days.
But what's important now is
time
going to be
nearly 7 hours.
A long day in the saddle, but what's important now, Phil, is the gaps between all of these groups out on the open road. They're in the outskirts of town. This is Gilberto Simoni looking for a little bit of help, wants to go forward with Danilo De Luca. And luckily enough for Paolo Savoldelli, he's got a few friends in his group as well, because that's Cacchioli going to the front, Unai Osa prepared to set the pace at the front of this group. He has to make sure he doesn't lose too much time on the men in front of him, Danilo De Luca and Gilberto Simoni, because he could see himself losing his Maglia Rosa once again.
Well, I admire Simoni today. He knew he had to attack. It was a plan. He worked it with Cunego. And De Luca as well, the ever-aggressive Danilo, has also read it right. They obviously hit Paolo Savoldelli when he wasn't feeling too good. He saw the attack and he could not react to it. And now he's fighting to save a few seconds. He might just hang on to his Maglia Rosa, but for how long now? Because Simoni clearly is feeling a bit frisky.
Simoni's feeling frisky, but I tell you what, Danilo De Luca must be feeling pretty good with an individual time trial coming up. This is the next group on the road, Valjevec, and of course Ruyano. Ruyano, I think, will try and get second, but it's not really that important to him. The most important thing is this has been a dominating performance in the mountains again by dell'Italia.
Yep. First and second in the King of the Mountains. Ruyano will keep his lead, a massive lead over Parra, who in turn has a massive lead over anybody else. So he's not going to take the sprint. Valjevec will take this, and second place for him. He had a 9th place finish in the Giro last year, and he's going to be riding high again by the end of this great weekend. And Ruyano punches the air because he knows now it's more champagne tonight.
Well, another good day for those guys, but everybody, I think, Phil, is waiting to see what the time gap is going to be like between these 3 riders and the group behind, and it looks to me as if they're just pulling back a rider who was caught in the middle there, Unai Osa. Yeah. He was originally in the breakaway.
I'm not sure who this rider is. It must be... this is Osa. That's Osa coming in now. So are they just behind him? Awful lot of cars are getting in the way. If that's the case, he was dropped on the way up. He was one of the original riders out front, and he should be safe. Big time gaps now, but the time gaps aren't important until that chase group gets here. But Unai Osa riding in his new colours there, that's why I didn't pick him out, in the Elis Baleares team. He races up now at around about 3 minutes down on the day's winner. He'll get 4th.
Well, it was a long day in the mountains. The referee there standing out of the car looking back because he knows that the group of Simoni is actually boring down upon Unai Osa. They can't really be very far away, the group that contains Simoni and of course Danilo De Luca, and here they are, and they've picked up Emmanuel Sella. It was
Sella, they picked him up. Bad luck for him because he was looking for the high finish. Now he'll have to win the sprint. I think De Luca will probably handle that. This guy's a real racer when it comes to finishes. Look at this, they're not going to outsprint him, least of all Simoni. Danilo De Luca continues his great Giro d'Italia, and his high podium finish is still likely in Milan. Takes over there, he crosses the line in 5th place. Simoni getting 6th. Now the clock has started, and Paolo Savoldelli still out on the road. Every second really does count. And you know, Paul, I think they closed in quite dramatically here on that chase.
They certainly have done. They're charging up to the line. Nobody slowing down at all. I think he's going to lose himself around, well, it could well be just inside of 30 seconds as they stop the clock at 3:42.
3:42, so around about, about 20 seconds or so. Something like that, 25 seconds maybe. There's the result on the day. Simoni getting 6th, that's a significant one, and De Luca 5th. And he's getting used to the podium now, knows the way up, no problem at all. Iván Parra, 2 out of 2. Don't think he'll win tomorrow. We return to the flat roads on the eve of the second rest day. But he can have a little rest at the back of the peloton, job done. There's the overall, 25 seconds now as De Luca is in 2nd, Simoni is 3rd, Geraghty is in 4th. This is a on a descent down into Livigno. Let's join the action again.
Well, early on, not a surprise, Damiano Cunego going in a move here, but I think what's more important, the little rider from Venezuela in the green jersey is looking for maximum points once again.
Yes, and he's been getting them too, because on the Fascinetto at 39 kilometres, Rujano was on his own. He's now back in the pack just a little bit. He looks as though he's under pressure now, but he's got to get tired soon, surely.
There you get a chance to see the Maglia Rossa, the new Maglia Rossa, Paolo Savoldelli, shadowed there by, you could just spot Iván Basso. This is Vladimir Belli wearing number 82, a man once disqualified from the Giro d'Italia for punching somebody in the nose, and that wasn't bad because he was going uphill at the time, and he was put under pressure by the Simoni hooligans. Fortunately, that seems to have disappeared.
9 riders shaping the race early on today. To that group here on the way up here. Now Iván Basso, as we get up to the snow line, losing some 18 minutes. And there he is, he stopped in fact. Now is this the moment of truth where he climbs off? Because they said he's got some sort of stomach problem. Bjarne Riis is getting out the car. And in fact he's not packing in, is he? Because they're putting plastic on for the descent down.
It's Andrea Perron with him. I don't think, you know what, this man is not going to walk away from the Giro d'Italia. He's more than 20 minutes behind the leading group of riders. Iván Basso there in the middle, getting the black raincoat on to keep himself warm on the descent. He has been suffering from some strange intestinal problem, but he will not abandon the race. And the teammates, they're all alongside him.
Blauten is off to our right, the champion of Denmark. He's also waiting, you can't see him. Boy, are they wrapping him up. He must have some sort of cold or bronchitis or something, but he's not. Just looking back here as they're trying to split this up now. Rujano is a man on fire. Hey, this is Iván Parra again. Well, I don't know where he found the legs from, but this is Parra on the move again. He was in the first 9 riders to escape, and Sella Italia, the pair of them now having a great time, throwing this jersey around.
Well, these riders don't care at all about the overall classification. Just looking a little further up the road, though, we can see getting himself maximum points very early on. This man, who comes from Venezuela, is turning out to have no fear at all of the long distances. He's trying to get himself, again, maximum points at the top of this climb. Got the Maglia Verde on his shoulders, the green jersey, as leader of the King of the Mountains classification, and that's a lot more points in the bag.
I'll tell you what, this team has grown with stature and confidence. Look at that, happy, yes indeed. Keep on picking up the points, and this jersey will be all yours before we get to the rest day. He's not even going to push, not going to give up, and I think that's a sign of a great rider.
Well, this is a rather brave move by the man there. You can see he's got his black jersey on to keep himself warm against the elements, and just look at how cold it was up there. Iván Parra, though, well, he's not too worried about the cold, is he? Because he's got himself a lead at the front of the race once again.
So dropped on the Stelvio, way behind on the Bormio, and Basso is now out of the race as far as the overall goes, but with a great show of determination, he's not going to pack in and leave by what they say, the little door. So hats off there to Iván Basso, because it takes a lot of courage to go on when you've been leading the Giro d'Italia. Meanwhile, up front, Iván Parra is having a great day out yet again. 2 days and a chance now of another stage win. Surely not.
Well, that's always very difficult to do when you come to the big mountain passes. We're looking back to see what the state of play is a little bit further behind him, and once again it's...
On the attack, well, it's still a long way to go. He's going to wait for the others to do their share of sprinting and then rejoin here. This is the DeLuca group. The pink jersey now on the shoulders of Team Discovery's Paolo Savoldelli. They are saying, by the way, that Iván Basso was not feeling at all well yesterday. Well, we'll wait and see. Iliano was the rider in second place, and Cunigo here getting 10, 6 and 4. So we're heading now towards the big mountain of the day, the Stelvio Pass.
Well, the Stelvio Pass going to go up very, very high indeed. Filippo Pozzato there, and this is rather a surprise because in the early few kilometres of the Stelvio Pass, the first man to get dropped there was Iván Basso. And look at the time difference, 18 minutes to Iván Basso. I think today he has disappeared away from the top end of the overall standings in the Giro d'Italia, and he's just going to have to wonder whether or not, Phil, he's going to stay in the race.
Well, I think you could say that. We've switched straight